Hello, my name is Brian Seaman, and this is That Rings a Bell. So this week's question comes from Chris in Washington, D.C., who says, I have heard chatter of a technique that allows for six in hand. Is that a real thing? Well, yes, Chris, that is a real thing, and to give you more information about six in hand and other multiple bell techniques, I am joined by the expert of fitting as many bells into your hands at one time as possible, Danny Lyons. Welcome, Danny.
Hi, Brian. Thank you.
So, six in hand, first thing I want to mention is just a clarification on the name, in that six in hand means six bells total in both hands, not six bells in one hand. Though if anybody could figure out how to do that, it would be you.
Well, I'm at four in each hand, but I haven't even tried five, and certainly not six. So yeah, six in hand it's in the bells that you have in hand, and that means that you're not picking them up and putting them down on the table like we normally do as a soloist. So everything is in hand, and that's all that means. So six total. So to set up six in hand, you can see in this video, I'm going to move this a little over. There are three bells. That's going to be my left hand. And then there are three bells over here that are going to be in my right hand. And I'm going to set up the left hand first. So what we're going to do is, if I put my hand here, you see my thumb, and normally I do this, I play with gloves on all the time, but I'm doing it without gloves just because it makes it a little clearer. So you can see that my thumb is over the A bell. I'm using the D6, G6, A6, and I'll show you why in a few minutes. But those are the three, and whatever you're going to play, decide which three bells you want in which hand and lay them out on the table. And if you put your hand over the bells, you can see that my thumb is over this the A6 in this particular setup. So that's the thumb bell, and I'm going to set the middle bell up and aside just for a moment. So we're going to work with the outside and the inside bells, or the pinky bell and the thumb bell. And this is an interlocked setup. So it's something that you have to set up in advance and just use that way. This is not a traveling six in hand setup. So I'm going to put interlock these two bells, and the thumb bell, as you put your hand on it, you're seeing that the thumb bell is going to go on the outside of the pinky bell. And that's very important as far as the way that I set it up, because it comes out into a nice even pattern of the three bells in your hand. So every time I do this, I say inside on the outside. That means the inside bell, that thumb bell, is going to go on the outside of the other bell that you're interlocking. I think you can see that in the video. Now, for the middle bell, this is the left hand, so we're going to turn this bell so that the insignia is facing left. It's going to ring that way, and then I'm going to insert that bell into the handle of the other two bells. And sometimes it's a little bit of a squeeze, but you can see there, I've got them all three interlocked. The middle bell is going down into the inside of the other two bells. I hope that everybody can see that and understand it. Now, to pick them up, the way I do it is I put my index finger in between these two bells. That's the right hand bell and the middle bell, and then two fingers between the middle bell and the pinky bell in this hand. And then your thumb and your pinky are just going to wrap around. So when you pick it up, it's going to look like this. Now you see the nice even spacing. All three bells are evenly spaced. There's not a single chance in the world that those bells are going to touch each other and clang. And here's a view from the underside, so you can see what my hand is doing. My thumb is wrapping around there. My pinky is wrapping around here. And then the other three are just like that. There you go with the left hand. I'll do the right hand real quickly. It's just the same as the left hand, but a little bit opposite. So we've got, if I put my hand here, the thumb bell is going to be the B6, and the pinky bell is going to be the D7 in this particular setup. So the middle bell, the C7, I'll set up in a way, and then inside on the outside, this inside bell is going to go on the outside. The handle is going to go outside of the other one. And then for this, the middle bell in this one, the bell is going to ring to the right, So I'm going to turn it so the insignia is facing to the right, and then once again it gets just inserted down in between the other two. To pick them up, again, 2 fingers between those two fingers between the thumb bell and the middle bell, and the thumb and the pinky just wrap around. So again, there it is. And nice even spacing and a lot of space between each bell. And here's the underside. So you can see my whole hand my fingers are wrapping around each one of those bells. Being that they're an interlocked set of bells, it's not scary. Like you don't feel like once you pick this up, it doesn't feel like you're going to lose one of the bells because they're interlocked and there's a nice firm grip there. All right. So there's how to set up the 6 in hand bells. Okay, here's how to play 6 in hand. You see, now I put my gloves on now because it's very stressful for the space in between your pinky finger and your ring finger. That's where the handle goes sideways. So it's good to have on gloves. I actually wear 2 pair of gloves. These are both cotton gloves, pretty thin. You can see that, I think, in the video. But I wear 2 pairs of gloves. And a lot of times, if I'm practicing a lot, I also put tape. I use a thin medical tape, and you can put some right here in between your 2 fingers where that bell handle is going to be, and that helps to protect your hand. All right, so the way this is going to ring then, the pinky bell on my left hand, which is this one in the video, is going to ring forward. And the way it has to ring is it's got to pivot around the thumb bell. If you just press them forward, both forward, they're going to play like Shelley, the 2 outer bells, which we don't want to do. We want both of them to be independently controlled, unless that's what we want. So this one's going to pivot around the pinky bell. And I'm holding that bell right now just as a demo, but you can do it. You can see it's not moving enough to ring. So then the thumb bell on this hand is going to pivot around the pinky bell this way. So see how the pinky bell is not moving very much, but the thumb bell is moving enough to ring. And then the middle bell actually rings to the left in this situation, the way this is set up. But we normally turn it to the front and ring it this way. I think you can see that in the video, just because it makes more sense to protect your wrist that way. There's not all that sideways movement on the wrist. It's much safer for you. So we've got forward, left, forward, and that's the left hand. And if you wanted Shelley for those 2, just push them forward and you can do that. If you wanted to ring, say, the pinky bell and the middle bell, you can do sort of a forward and a twist. And the same thing with the middle bell and the thumb bell. You can sort of twist and pivot at the same time. I don't do that very often. And you can see because I'm not very, very adept at doing it. But that's, if you needed those 2 bells according to your setup. I don't usually set this up so I have to do that particular thing. But I use the Shelley bells quite a lot. And then here's the right hand. So again, the thumb bell is going to ring forward, and it's pivoting around this pinky bell. I think you can see that the pinky bell is not moving enough to actually ring. And then to ring the pinky bell, it's going to pivot around this thumb bell. So the thumb bell is not moving enough to ring, but the pinky bell is. And then to ring the middle bell, again, it's going to ring to the right, but normally we hold it so it's ringing forward. So here's, then the right hand is going to go forward, right, forward, and then left hand is forward, right, forward, left, I'm sorry, and then forward. So that's how you can ring the 6 in hand. This is Ode to Joy. That's why I set up these particular particular bells, and these are the 6 bells that are in Ode to Joy.
Thank you very much. How long have you been playing with 6-in-hand technique?
So maybe 15 years, something like that. I don't really know when I started. I remember when Christine Anderson and I sat down at dinner, and she showed me with knives and forks how to put it together. But I'd have to try to look up a program to see what year that was. I can't really remember.
I've known that from the times that I've tried it, that one of the hardest things for me to do is kind of figure out the muscle memory of remembering exactly which bell is where and exactly the motion that I need to be able to ring that. And so that's definitely something that comes from years of doing it and building up that muscle memory.
It absolutely does. It's a matter of practice, like anything. And 6-in-hand is not all that hard to do, but it does take practice to remember which one goes where.
So we could stop here and say that we've answered Chris's question, but part of the reason I brought Danny on this week is because he didn't just stop at 6 bells in hand. Danny actually can do 8 bells in hand. Danny, how did you first come up and decide, I think I can get one more bell in each hand?
It's kind of a long story, but I'm going to give you a very brief version. I went to a solo and ensemble extravaganza. Gosh, I wish I could remember what year that was, and I can't. But I played a 6-in-hand arrangement of Ode to Joy. It's a 3-verse arrangement that I play in performance a lot of times. So I played it there. I premiered it there at C, and then they used to do it every other year. So the next one came along, and I thought, I've got to do something else. It made such a big hit that I did the 6-in-hand. I thought, I've got to go someplace else with this. So I made it my goal to do 8-in-hand, to add one more bell. And I thought and figured and tried to come up with a way. So I came up with a way to put them together. So it's kind of like 6-in-hand plus. So 6-in-hand, the way I just demoed it a moment ago, and then I added one more bell behind my thumb that actually rings back instead of forward. So it gives me another direction to go. So it took, just figuring out how to put it together was the first part. And then, as Brian and I discussed a moment ago, it takes a long time to get to the point where you can actually play something with it, because, well, it's hard, but doable. So anyway, there's kind of a very brief discussion about how I came up with 8-in-hand. And I played that at the next C, and that was the first time anybody had ever seen that I was aware of, and it made a big hit there too. Now here's an explanation of how to actually put together 8-in-hand. So for this particular setup, I'm using an E major scale. So it goes from E6 to E7. Here are the 4 bells that I'm going to hold in my left hand: E, F sharp, G sharp, and A. And for the moment, I'm going to put the A aside, and then I'm going to put the F sharp aside. So we have E and G sharp inside on the outside, just as I did with the 6-in-hand. So this G sharp handle is going to go on the outside of the E. So this is bell 1 and bell 3 inside on the outside. And then the middle bell, this is just like we did 6-in-hand a moment ago. See the insignia, this is going to ring to the left. So I'm turning that to the left, and it will be inserted between the other 2. So this looks like just like 6-in-hand so far. And then for the thumb bell, what I'm going to do then, this is A6 is my thumb bell. I'm going to put the thumb bell on, as you'll see I'm doing, so that the big inside part of the handle goes over the big part of handle number 1. It makes it just easier to put on there. If you do it the other way, then the big part is trying to go through the small part of the handle, and it's very difficult to put it on. So we're going to put it on this way, and you see now the insignia on the A is facing up, and what I'm going to do is flip it over without turning any of the other 3 bells, so that now that insignia is facing down, meaning this thumb bell will ring to the back. And I'm going to pick it up just like I did with 6 in hand. 2 fingers here, 1 finger here, the pinky wraps around, and the thumb wraps around this thumb bell. So, and you see that there's lots of space, if you hold it right, between those 2 bells. Those are the ones that are, this is the number 4 bell and the number 2 bell have a tendency to clank together. So you've got to, there's a little channel here in a Walmart bell. I don't think the Shilmerick bells have that, but you can put your finger here, if you can see that, kind of on the edge. Generally, I just pick them up and hang on this way. And I've done it enough that it's relatively easy for me to do. It won't be easy at first, I can assure you, but it will come in time. The way it's going to ring then is this pinky bell is going to ring forward, and it pivots around all the rest of them. The next bell up is going to ring to the left, but we're going to turn it this way so it's actually ringing forward. And then the number 3 bell is going to ring forward. This is hard to do in this particular handhold, but you can see it's pivoting around that number 1 bell. And then the back bell is going to ring back. So you have to do some adjusting on the timing of the bells. These bells are set to ring very, very easily. So I don't have to do a big flick with my hand. I can just kind of move it a little bit. And the bell that rings back, the number 3 bell, rather, that rings forward, when you ring the number 4 bell, then you have to adjust that one so it doesn't ring very easily going back. So it doesn't ring when you play that 4th bell. Now here's the right hand. So you've got 6 in hand there. That's the same setup as 6 in hand. And for the thumb bell, again, we're going to turn this bell so the insignia is up, and I'm putting the big part of the handle over the sideways part of the big part of this handle, just so it'll go on there. Here it goes. All right, and that's the one then that we have to turn over and make sure that nothing else moves, so that now that bell is facing down, and the other 3 are just in the same way they were. And 2 fingers here, 1 finger here, pinky wraps around, and the thumb wraps around that thumb bell. So there's the 4 bells in your right hand. They're going to ring forward, right, forward, back. Here's how to play 8 in hand. You see I've got the 4 bells. This is my right hand, and 4 bells in the left hand. The pinky bell in the right hand is going to ring forward. The middle bell rings to the right. The next bell down rings forward. And then the thumb bell rings back. And in this hand we've got back, forward, back, forward, left, forward. So it does take some practice to get to the point where you can do just 1 bell without any of the other bells ringing. And you see I was a little bit out of practice, and I had a couple of incidents there where I got 2 bells when I didn't really want 2 bells. But with some practice, it's pretty easy to do. Now, if you want 2 bells with this particular setup, if the bells are set up the way I've got them, which is a straight diatonic scale of 8 bells, you can ring like the top bell and the 3rd bell. You can ring that 3rd playing Shelley. And then the next 3rd down, you're going to twist your hand so that you're ringing the middle bell and the back ringing bell at the same time. It's kind of like a backwards 4 in hand. There's a sweet spot to find. And then to ring the next one down, the right hand's got to ring forward and the thumb bell's got to ring back. That's kind of a little bit of a brain twister. And the next one down, the thumb on your right hand is ringing back, and the middle bell on the next and the left hand is ringing forward. And then, now let me do that without talking, and maybe I can actually do it. So there are thirds almost all the way down with a little cadence at the end. Now, while we're here, here's a demonstration. I'm not going to play this whole piece because my hands are getting tired, and I probably won't make it through it without a little rest and then coming back to it. Usually when I'm practicing one of these 8 in hand pieces, like Carillon on Nettleton, which is published by Sonology and available, I usually play it 2, maybe 3 times a day. I play through it and practice, and then rest, do something else, and then come back to it later on. It's for me personally, it's hard to keep that up for a long period of time. I couldn't just practice this for 30 minutes or an hour because my hands wear out, and my arms wear out. It's kind of heavy to hold all this up. Again, that's why I went to E major, so that it's not quite so weighty. But here's the hymn tune, Nettleton, which is Come Thou Fount of Every Blessings.
I had to laugh when you talked about walking and playing, because if the coordination of figuring out the 8 bells in each hand and how to ring each of them, but also walking at the same time, that's a level of coordination that's beyond me by far.
It's not. That's why I said if you can walk and play at the same time, and that's something you definitely would want to practice. Even I do that 6 in hand thing a lot of times as a processional, but I have to practice that. I walk all over my house, and then especially most church chancels have steps that you have to go up. So usually if I'm playing the 6 in hand and doing it as a processional, I try to wait till I get to kind of an easy spot before I have to go up steps, because you certainly don't want to trip and fall going up. But it's okay just to do it stationary. People like to see that anyway.
Yeah, certainly. Even stationary, it's very impressive.
Well, thank you. It's fun to do. It's fun to watch people's faces when that all begins.
If you're interested in more, I've put links down in the description down below, both to Danny's initial performance of 8 in hand at C, and also to his arrangement of Carillon on Nettleton, which is available through Sonology Music, if you're daring enough to try this on your own. Both of those links will be in the description down below.
I also have handouts to show you how to put both of these together, and we'll put a link to those as well. I'll send those to Brian, and you can put a link to those. And I have a new arrangement that's just coming out. This is one I premiered at National just a few weeks ago, well, a couple of months ago now, I guess. But it's Carillon on Simple Gifts, and it's coming out by Sonology. Should be out any day now.
Great. Thank you so much, Danny, for joining us and explaining and sharing your expertise with us today.
You're welcome, Brian. Thank you for the invitation to do this. It's been a lot of fun. So I look forward to seeing some 8 in hands. If anybody out there decides to do an 8 in hand, take a video and send it to me. And if you need help, I'm available to through whatever method, text or email or video. So if you need some help with that, I'm happy to give it.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Brian.
If you have a question that you would like to see answered in a future episode, go ahead and leave a comment down below or send us an email at trabvlog@gmail.com. Keep sending us your questions and topic suggestions, and we'll see you next time.